All right. Hello, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of Sailor Jupiter. And today we got to talk about Crimea because it's been in the news, and Donald Trump is now pressuring Ukraine to recognize Crimea as sovereign Russian territory, and is, in all probability, preparing to recognize Crimea as sovereign Russian territory. On behalf of the United States, going to probably try to pressure other countries into doing it, and the sort of like shit countries of the coalition of the shitholes, which are like El Salvador, Israel, or whatever, just fucking shithole countries run by low IQ dictators. They're going to probably recognize Crimea as Russian, but the thing is, right, Trump is pressuring Ukraine, and he's also pressuring the Europeans allies to do it, and that must not transpire. Why? Well, it's actually very simple. We have a historic chance with this Ukraine war to solve the Russian problem for good. Russia is not so much a country, it's a historical error, and it is very much a mess of America's making. Like, this is a problem child which has been indulged and coddled by first the United Kingdom, then United States, and basically used as a boogeyman against Europe by these states, very cynically, I may add. But that's not the point. I'm not trying to create acrimony between European peoples. But the fact of the matter is, this is America's mess. Russia is America's mess, and now this problem child has grown up into a criminal adult who is well past the point of reformation. So this person needs to be, arrested, tried, and fundamentally executed. There are some criminals who cannot be reformed, and we should not waste resources on their upkeep. Well, international law does not have police, so we're going to have to destroy Russia in armed conflict. Now, it's a big fucking state, it's militarily powerful, yada, yada, yada. So maybe we can attrit it away to nothing, but it would be far simpler to destroy it by attacking its political formula, the glue, the national mythology which holds the country together, and the core, the heart of Russian national mythology is imperial expansion, but specifically imperial expansion into Crimea and Ukraine more generally. So, by recognizing Crimea as Russian, what Trump would do, and what Ukraine would do if it did it, which it mustn't, right, is legitimize the Russian thesis, right? The thesis, which is Russia, will be proven by recognition of the holder of the antithesis. This is just Hegelian dialectic, and this must not happen. This must not happen because that would embolden Russia to then just attack other countries, keep attacking Ukraine, rearm, and become a massive threat to Europe, the kind that maybe we cannot even contain, right? And it will also embolden other shithole dictatorial regimes such as China, North Korea, and Trump is, I guess he's banking on this because he wants to annex Greenland or whatever. He wants to make annexing great again. This must not transpire. So Ukraine must not recognize Crimea. No, as Russian, no European state should do it. And in fact, Europe should triple its efforts to arm Ukraine, and Ukraine must also focus its efforts on retaking Crimea from the Russians, because actually separating Russia from Crimea, physically removing the Crimean Peninsula from Russia's grasp, physically removing Russians from the Crimean Peninsula, would basically break them as a concept at the psychological and political level. It will demonstrate that no, Russia is not a great state, it's not a great power, it is basically a problem, like a criminal, a burden, a blight on the world with which we have been living with. And when you disintegrate a state at the psychopolitical level, it doesn't really matter how many soldiers it has. It doesn't really matter how many tanks and guns and nuclear weapons, which I don't believe they have, actually. I think their nuclear triggers don't work. But we're going to talk about Russian nukes at some other time. So for this reason, right, Crimea is the key. Russia must not be allowed to retain Crimea. I've made a video on this channel before that as long as Ukraine has the Kursk salient as a sort of dagger in Russia's back, it is slowly attriting away the Russian political formula, Putin's political capital. Now that's over with, thanks to the psychotic toddler in the White House who shared American intelligence with the Russians, whether openly or just by having horrible operational security and having their conversations with a very easily hackable signal. But, you know, that ship has sailed. The Kursk salient was slowly eroding away the Russian political formula. Seizing Crimea would shatter it completely, because Crimea figures much more prominently in Russian national mythology than Kursk. Okay, the Battle of Kursk is important to the Russians, but Crimea is their everything. It's like Russia's Kosovo. You know, if you're familiar with the whole Kosovo thing, right? Serbia keeps pining away for Kosovo, right? Because even though it's 90-something% Albanian at this point, it would just be a problem province if they retook it, unless, you know, they ethnically cleanse the Albanians or something. But they keep pining for Kosovo, not because it's mineral rich. It's not. It's because this is a major, major part of the Serbian national myth, and we've spoken about this national mythology of Serbia, which is that they fought the Turks at Kosovo and they lost, but they killed the Turkish Sultan. They resisted bravely, and this is essentially the basis not just for the Serbian state, but for every Serbian state which has existed since the Battle of Kosovo, and for the Serbian nation itself. If the idea of a Serbian Kosovo is somehow defeated, right, in Hegelian dialectic, if the Serbs actually concede that, yeah, actually, no, Kosovo is no longer Serbia. Used to be, we lost it. This would destroy the Serbian nation. It would just shatter it completely. There would be no point to being Serbian anymore. And for that reason, you know, I believe that Ukraine must never concede Russian control of Crimea. Europe must never recognize Russian control of Crimea, and in fact every effort should be made to chase the Russians out of Crimea, precisely for this reason, so we can shatter them at the psychopolitical level to the point where they cease being a you know, the state they are today, and then we can move in and reform them into something that is going to be useful to Europe and not a threat to it. I mean, this is fundamentally about rescuing Russians from their own psychosis, if that's possible. If not, well, you know, we got to keep on living. It's like it might even be an old Yeller type situation. We might need to put this state down permanently, and then just deal with the demographic fallout, I guess, with the fallout of everything. But that's really what the reason why Ukraine must never recognize Crimea, Europe must never recognize Crimea as Russian, and why the fact of Donald Trump recognizing Crimea as Russian would prove, I would say, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that this is a Russian agent, that he is, you know, I don't know, bribed by the Russians, blackmailed by the Russians, or is just helping them out of ideological comedy. You know, mice, money, ideology, compromat, ego. It doesn't really matter what the Russians have on Trump. They have something on him, or he just loves them, or whatever. Donald Trump, psychotic orange toddler, the MAGA movement is a movement of Russian assets and agents. There can be no doubt about it. And when there's a reckoning in America, when the final and inevitable reckoning in America comes over MAGA, a lot of people will have to be imprisoned, you know, arrested, tried for treason, and shot, because that's the punishment for treason in America. You're executed. That's what's in the U.S. code, I believe. So yeah, a lot of people will be shot or electrocuted or whatever the fuck they do for execution. Personally, I'm partial to hanging, but it is what it is. And so never give up. Glory to Ukraine, glory to all heroes, and Crimea is forever Ukraine.